Hey, second graders, happy Tuesday. So today is going to be very similar to yesterday. I'm going to read a book to you, and I'm going to stop while I'm reading the book so that you can do some thinking and make some connections with the story. But afterward, I'm going to show you how to identify who the characters are, draw the characters, do the same thing for the setting, because you are going to be doing the same thing you did yesterday. So you're going to be choosing a different book on Epic or Raz Kids, a different book, different independent reading book. And you're going to apply the skill that I teach you to your own independent reading. And you'll show me that on Seesaw. So this book is called The Old Woman Who Named Things. And this is a book about friendship, but it's different from the other books because the other books we've read so far are about children and how they play together. This story is about an old woman who no longer has any friends. I'm going to read you the back cover. How does an old woman who has outlived all her friends keep from being lonely? By naming the things in her life she knows she will never outlive, like her house, Franklin, and her bed, Roxanne. Then a shy brown puppy appears at her front gate. If the old woman is too friendly, the puppy might stay, and she will have to name it. She can't risk that, so she tells it to go home. But the plucky puppy has other ideas. What does this tell you about the woman? It tells us that she's lonely, isn't she? Because she's lived longer than all of her friends. What are you wondering about the puppy's ideas? It says that this puppy has other ideas. What are you wondering about? What do you think those ideas are? Okay. The Old Woman Who Named Things by Cynthia Rylant, illustrated by Catherine Brown. Just make sure you can see the pictures, okay? Here we go. The Old Woman Who Named Things. Once there was an old woman who loved to name things. She named the old car she drove Betsy. She named the old chair she sat in Fred. She named the old bed she slept on Roxanne. And she named her old house Franklin. Every morning she would get out of Roxanne, have a cup of cocoa in Fred, lock up Franklin, and drive to the post office in Betsy. She always hoped for a letter from someone, but all she ever got was bills. The reason the old woman never got any letters was because she had outlived every single one of her friends. That means she lived longer than all of her friends. This worried her. She didn't like the idea of being a lonely old woman without any friends, without anyone whom she could call by name. So she began to name things. But she named only those things she knew she could never outlive. Her car Betsy had more get up and go than anything around. Her chair Fred had never sagged a day in his life. Not one creak or moan had she ever heard out of her old bed Roxanne. And her house Franklin had been standing straight for over 100 years and still didn't look a day past 20. The old woman never worried about outliving any of them, and her days were happy. Why does this woman name some of her things? She doesn't want to have to say goodbye to anybody else. So she names things that can't die. Now, she's definitely feeling very sad, right? She's feeling sad because she's lost so many of her friends. And the house and her car and her bed can't die or pass away because they're not really alive. They're just objects. One day when the old woman was out soaping some mud off Betsy, telling her that Franklin wouldn't want to be seen with a car that didn't keep its bumpers a little cleaner, a shy brown puppy came to the old woman's gate. The old woman had not named the gate because 2 of its hinges had rusted off, and she could tell the gate wasn't long for this world. The shy brown puppy wagged its tail. It looked a little hungry. The old woman stood beside Betsy and watched the puppy for a while. She said. What do you think she's thinking when she says, Then she walked into Franklin, got a chunk of ham from her refrigerator, and came back outside. The old woman gave the ham to the hungry puppy and told it to go home. She told it that Betsy always made puppies sick, and Fred never allowed puppies to sit on him, and Roxanne wasn't wide enough for a puppy and an old woman to fit on. And besides all this, Franklin couldn't tolerate dog hair. So the puppy went away. Do you think these are real reasons why she doesn't want the puppy to stay? What do you think? Do you think maybe she's just making excuses? What's the real reason she doesn't want the puppy to stay? But the next day the puppy was back. The old woman was sitting in Fred reading a book on everlasting flowers when she saw the puppy through her window. "Go home," she called to the puppy. The puppy wagged its tail when it saw her. "Go home," she called again. But the puppy just kept wagging. The old woman noticed that it still looked a little hungry, so she went to her refrigerator. She gave the puppy a hunk of cheese and 2 biscuits. Then she told it to go home. The puppy went away. That night, as the old woman plumped up the pillows on Roxanne, she thought about the puppy. It was a very nice puppy, she thought. It was a very pretty puppy, she thought. But it couldn't stay. If it stayed, she would have to give it a name, and it could never last as long as Franklin or Fred or Betsy or Roxanne. She might outlive it. And she didn't want to risk that. She didn't want to outlive any more friends. She would just keep telling it to go home. Every day the shy brown puppy came to the old woman's gate. Every day she fed it and told it to go home. Always it went away and always it came back the next day. This went on for many months. The puppy got bigger and bigger until soon it wasn't a puppy anymore. It was a dog. And it was still a dog with no name. And all this time the old woman had gotten a new dresser that she had named Bill, a new wheelbarrow that she had named Francine, and a new concrete pig for her garden that she had named Bud. But the dog she faithfully fed at her gate every day still had no name. Since it had no name, the old woman didn't have to worry about outliving it, and she thought herself pretty clever in this. What do you think the old woman should do? Do you think that the woman should give the dog a name? Do you think that the old woman should welcome the dog into her house? Or do you think she should keep doing this? Then one day the shy brown dog did not come to the old woman's house. She sat in Fred and watched the gate all day long, but the dog never came. The old woman felt sad. The next day again the dog did not come. The old woman drove Betsy around town looking for the dog, but she did not find it. The old woman felt even sadder. What would you do if you were the woman? Gosh, I think I might go to an animal shelter and see if somebody maybe turned the dog in. I might keep driving. What would you do? The following day, when still the dog did not come, the old woman knew she had to do something. She picked up her telephone and called the dog catcher. "Have you caught any shy brown dogs?" the old woman asked the dog catcher. "We've got a whole kennel full of shy brown dogs, ma'am," said the dog catcher. "Was yours wearing a collar with its name on it?" "No," said the old woman sadly, and she hung up the telephone. It said that she was sad. Why do you think she was sad? She was sad when he asked if the dog was wearing a collar with its name on it. Why do you think that would make her sad? Does the dog have a name? The old woman sat and thought about the shy brown dog who had no collar with a name. Wherever it was, no one would know that it was supposed to come to the old woman's gate every day, that she was supposed to feed it and tell it to go home every day, that things were always supposed to be this way. The shy brown dog had no collar and no name, and no one would ever be able to know these things about it. The old woman made a decision. She locked up Franklin and drove Betsy to the dog catcher's kennel. She said to the dog catcher, "I've come to find my dog." He asked her what color it was. "It's brown," she said. He asked her how old it was. "About a year old," she said. Then he asked her what its name was. The old woman thought a moment. She thought of all the old dear friends with names whom she had outlived. She saw their smiling faces and remembered their lovely names, and she thought how lucky she had been to have known these friends. She thought what a lucky old woman she was. "My dog's name is Lucky," she told the dog catcher. He led her to a big, full yard full of white dogs and black dogs and brown dogs. The old woman looked and looked and looked, and finally she saw her own shy brown dog sitting beside a gate. The dog was looking at Betsy, parked in the driveway. The old woman called out, "Here, Lucky!" And at the sound of her voice, the shy brown dog came running. Oh, I got goosebumps on my arms. From that day on, Lucky lived with the old woman, and he always came when his name was called. It turned out that Betsy didn't make all dogs sick, and Fred was happy to allow a dog to sit on him. Franklin really didn't mind a little dog hair. Oh, look at that illustration and that dog's, Lucky's face. And every night Roxanne was sure to make herself plenty wide enough for a shy brown lucky dog, and the old woman who named him. Okay, now I am going to send you an assignment with 1 or 2 really good questions about the book that I want you to answer. So that's just your reading response. So you're going to answer those questions using the microphone, so you can tell me your answers, or you can write your answers down. But I am going to ask you a little more about the ending of the story and what your thoughts are about the ending of the story. Okay? I hope you enjoyed this book. I really loved the ending, and I hope you did too. So yesterday I showed you something that sort of looked like this. Now I have my whiteboard behind me over there, and I'm just going to use this as a whiteboard right now. It's actually part of a binder. But you are going to do the skill that I show you right here for your independent reading book again. I am going to model this for you based off of this book, The Old Woman Who Named Things, okay? But you're not going to do it for The Old Woman Who Named Things. You are going to do it for an independent reading book that you choose from Epic or from Raskids. So, the first box on Seesaw, it tells you to name the characters and draw the characters. Now, in our story, I'm not sure what the woman's name is, so I'm just going to say the old woman. She's one of the characters. The old woman. And I'm going to say that another really important character in this story is the dog. So I'm going to say the old woman, and then I'm also going to say the dog. And what did she name it at the end? Lucky. The dog, Lucky. Now, I'm not worried about complete sentences right now, so you're just writing down the characters' names, and then you're drawing them. Now, I don't have a lot of colors of markers right now, so I'm just going to kind of draw this lady, and she likes to wear a cardigan. So I'm going to draw her. I'm going to try to draw her cardigan. She has her hair kind of in a fun bun at the top of her head. Okay, so I'm just going to draw her little pants, and then that dog. I like how on the cover, the dog is kind of looking up at her, waiting for a snack. So I'm going to try to draw that. It's hard to draw a dog in the color blue. Doesn't really look right. Okay. Yeah. This would be easier on Seesaw, I think. Okay. I don't want this video to get too long. So we'll pretend that that's my finished dog. And then you're going to draw the setting. So draw the setting. So I'm going to draw the house, because most of the story takes place in the house. And I'm also going to draw, I'd maybe draw the car in the background. Okay. And then I might draw some of the scenery in the background too, like the grass and the trees. So the setting. And then the last part asks you, when does it take place? When? And I'm just going to look through the book again. You know, I'm just looking at it. It takes place I'm going to say it takes place during the day, or I'm going to say during or over, I'm going to say over multiple days. Over many days. It takes place over many different days because there's repetition, right? The dot keeps coming back. Sometimes the book is during the day, sometimes it's at night. But that's really when it takes place. And it feels like it takes place now. It doesn't seem like it's taking place in the past. It takes place over many days. I'm going to add, it takes place now. Okay? So you are going to do the same thing, fill out the same type of a chart on your own for your independent reading book, and you're going to answer the questions about this book as well. All right, second graders, I really hope you enjoyed The Old Woman Who Named Things. I'm really looking forward to seeing your responses.